Well, let's get more now on the latest from Westminster. Of course, a raucous Prime Minister's questions yesterday, and we are still waiting for that Sue Gray Partygate report to be published. The Prime Minister is facing claims that he lied about rescuing animals from Afghanistan. And of course, we're not yet sure when that Sue Gray report is coming out. So waiting for Gray, PMQs and Tory party disunity. Let's discuss it all now with the former Vice Chair of the Conservatives, Andrew Bowie MP. Welcome to the programme. Andrew, first of all, Westminster's pretty quiet today. You and your colleagues are on a one-line whip, meaning you're not being told to turn up. There are not important events expected. Does that mean we can rest easy as journalists and an anxious public for the next few days?
Well, Tom, I mean, if I've learned anything over the last few weeks is that I don't think we should get into the guessing game about what might be about to happen next. Expect the unexpected, I think, would be the watchword for anybody that's involved here at Westminster, or indeed in your trade, or indeed in the wider public. But things are much quieter here today. You're right, the Conservative Party is on the one-line whip. We're not expecting any serious business in the House of Commons. There's no contentious votes up today. And indeed, I think the feeling is that people are just sort of looking forward to the weekend, awaiting the publication of the Sue Gray report, and many of us, myself included, waiting to see what that says before we kind of make up our mind as to where we go next.
It's interesting looking at what's gone on in the last 2 weeks in particular. This rollercoaster of fortune for the Prime Minister, some days looking safer, some days looking on the precipice of leaving his job. Some colleagues of yours have submitted letters. Do you think that if this report is as damning as people are now expecting, that 54, that magic 54 number that leads into a no-confidence vote, do you expect that could happen next week?
Well, I mean, who knows? We do have to wait for the Gray report to be published in full to see what it says. So many people have told me what to expect in the report. It's quite remarkable, given the only person that knows for sure is actually Sue Gray herself, and I don't know Sue, and I haven't been able to speak to her to ask. I mean, it's just impossible to know without actually seeing the report what the mood of the Conservative Parliamentary Party will be, and if the threshold for triggering a vote of no confidence will actually be met. Let's not forget back in 2018 when members of the European Research Group called for letters of no confidence to be submitted into Theresa May's leadership. It took a full 6 months for the requisite number of letters to be submitted to trigger that no confidence vote. And then, of course, she went on to win that no confidence vote and carried on as Prime Minister for a full 6 months after that. So I think it's, you know, we shouldn't be drawn on hypothetical questions or hypothetical scenarios. We do just have to wait to see what the report says. And then, like many of my colleagues, we will make up our minds as to where we go next.
Now, you worked closely with Theresa May. You were with her for those final 6 months. You were popping in and out of Number 10, prepping her for Prime Minister's questions, all of that as her PPS. Do you sense that there is now a similar sort of atmosphere in the Commons? Is this a bit Groundhog Day? I've heard that lots of people are feeling very tired, that it seems like 2019 is potentially repeating itself.
Yeah, there is very much a feeling of we've been here before, haven't we? I was talking to Sir Graham Brady and I said, I bet you didn't think you'd have to go through this again so soon after the last time. And he turned to me and said, I feel the same, I could say the same about you. So I do remember those days quite clearly. It does feel very Groundhog Day-ish. And I think that's actually part of the problem. What we saw in 2019 with the goings-on within the Conservative Party ranks was that it completely distracted from the business of government actually moving this country forward. And that's the problem that we're facing right now. You know, most of my colleagues really just want to get on and deliver for the country, continue to deliver our manifesto commitments, levelling up, uniting the country and all the rest of it. And that's what we really want to get talking about. You know, we've got a great record when it comes to the vaccine rollout. Look at the jobs miracle, 420,000 more jobs now than we had before we went into the pandemic, the fastest growing economy in the G7, all the rest of it. That's what we want to be talking about, and taking the tough decisions on the cost of living crisis. But unfortunately, we're stuck in this Groundhog Day scenario because we have not had the Gray report and because we're unable to move on. So we do need to get that report so we know where we are, we can take decisions and move on for the good of the country.
For you and your colleagues is what is more likely to be able to enable the Tory party to move on? What is more likely to be able to enable the Tory party to talk about those things, about cost of living, about jobs, about foreign policy even? Is it plunging the party into another leadership election, or is it going full square behind the Prime Minister? So, Mr Bowie, have you submitted a letter in to the chairman of the 1922 committee?
I have not submitted a letter. I've said all along that I'm waiting for the Sue Gray report to be published so I can make up my mind, like many of my colleagues in the House of Commons are doing. And to answer your initial question as to what's better, do we go full square behind the Prime Minister or do we move to a vote of no confidence in a potential leadership election? Again, we just have to wait to see what the report says and then we can take a judgment based on that. A leadership election is something that we should not enter into lightly. A Conservative leadership election can take up to about 2 months to complete its full process. It would be a huge distraction from the business of governing. But if that is what a majority of my colleagues decide would be good for the party and indeed for the country, then that's obviously what will happen. But none of us can say for sure what's about to happen until we have the Sue Gray report published in full so we can make up our minds.
Well, I hope it's not very much longer that we can continue to return to that refrain of waiting for Sue Gray.
I think we can all agree with that.
Well, Andrew Bowie, former Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party, thank you for joining us this morning on The Briefing. Great to have your thoughts there.